Number one topic on American Twitter, I believe number two topic in world Twitter.
Yes.
Now, baby boomers don't think that's a valid metric, but I sure do. And I think this case of you handcuffing yourself to Twitter is the quintessential Laura Loomer event.
Yeah, it's pretty eventful.
Because it's kind of erratic, almost a train wreck in some ways, but in other ways, you stand back and you look at it and you go, she got her point across. She made her point.
Yeah, no, I definitely made my point, and a lot of people didn't agree with my tactics, but that's just what I do. Regardless of whether you like my tactics or not, I'm able to force so much media attention around certain topics, whether it be the assassination play and left-wing violence against conservatives from last year, which got the national discussion going about political violence against the right, or Twitter, of course. Nobody was talking about the censorship of conservatives, and so many people on the right have tried to get hashtags like Stop the Bias or raise awareness about social media censorship of conservatives online, but they haven't been successful. But you know, 4 hours or so of me handcuffed to Twitter HQ with indestructible handcuffs and a few signs was able to get the entire world talking about it for nearly 8 hours, and then the weeks after that, of course.
Yeah, it's, I don't want to call it clumsy, but it's not graceful. Sometimes, and I saw, like, when it first started, the left was laughing and ha-ha, and she's got the a song playing on her bullhorn, and the guy who put up the thing, he had the top of his finger cut off as the security guard slammed the door shut, and you go, uh-oh, and you're almost, as a conservative, we're so scared of being obtuse. We're such nerds, really, and chickens.
Yeah, they're scared of optics.
Yeah.
But does the left care about optics?
Nope.
The left doesn't care. They'll go outside and they'll wear pants full of period blood, and they'll
literally
they will, and they'll go to Congress and they'll do the most obscene things. They'll falsely accuse men of rape.
Feces. They throw feces like monkeys.
They'll do anything. They'll make paintings out of period blood. I mean, they don't care about optics. And so my question to conservatives is, why should you care about optics?
Yeah, because taking the high road is not working.
No, and these be-best Republicans who say we need to, have more morality, we need to be better than the left, right? Just be better, be classier, be better. Let's take the moral high ground, you guys. Well, do you think that the left took the moral high ground when they decided to falsely accuse Brett Kavanaugh of rape? I mean, if it wasn't for Lindsey Graham just basically,
coming out of his shell and growing balls
after being suppressed by John McCain for years.
Right.
Who knows if Brett Kavanaugh would have been confirmed, right? And so the left is willing to play evil. They don't care about ethics. They don't care about morals. They don't care about following the rules. So as far as I'm concerned, if we want to win, neither should we.
Yeah, I think it's time to buy Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals.
Yeah, I mean, I've already read it. I have a lot of copies other people can read, but I would agree. I think that every single conservative, every single politically minded individual needs to read that book because it's their playbook. It's what the left lives by. It's what Obama has praised. Hillary Clinton wrote her college thesis on it as well. So if you want to understand how these left-wing operatives work, or how the people who are organized around Soros and all of his organizations operate, pick up a copy of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals.
Isn't it dedicated to Lucifer?
Yes, in the original version, yes, but it received so much controversy that I believe they took it out of the other printed editions. But in the original and first printed copies, it does say Lucifer.
Well, the thing I love about your Twitter action was I was watching it sort of through my hands going, oh, and you could see the left enjoying anything that was, ungraceful about it. But then it gets up in the news. And then people start saying, so wait a minute, what were the two tweets that she had on that poster?
Yeah.
And one of them was Farrakhan saying, I'm not an anti-Semite, I'm an anti-termite.
Right.
No problem.
No problem. Not banned for hate speech.
Farrakhan's fine. Farrakhan's got a hit album out with Snoop Dogg and Stevie Wonder, a whole box set of snappy hits that is available to everyone. That's Farrakhan. Oh. And then yours was, you were talking about, what's her name, Ilhan Omar?
Yeah, her name is Ilhan Omar, and she's a Somali immigrant. She's one of the first Muslim women now elected to Congress, even though she hasn't been officially sworn in yet. She is representing Minnesota's 5th Congressional District, which was, of course, Keith Ellison's seat prior to him running for Attorney General.
Another totally radical.
Yeah, who now won
Muslim.
His election to be Attorney General in Minnesota, right? And so it's very problematic. And I flew to Minnesota, and I was on the ground actually for several months investigating Keith Ellison and Ilhan Omar.
This is the guy, by the way, who poses with an Antifa handbook.
And then uses the Islamic phrase strike fear in their hearts, and and is evoking a domestic terrorist organization to attack Trump supporters. Yes. And he is now the Attorney General of Minnesota after being accused by multiple women
of beating them.
Well, I don't know. If you ask the Muslims, I don't know. Maybe that is their best. I don't know. I mean, that's sanctioned. I mean, let's be honest, right? And these are Sharia adherents.
Sharia, you can beat your wife with a stick that's about that big.
In Sharia, you're allowed to abuse women. You're allowed to beat them. So when Keith Ellison says he did nothing wrong, well, he really honestly believes he did nothing wrong. And Ilhan Omar, of course, if you look at her history, she's extremely problematic as well. The tweet that I brought up was a tweet she posted several years ago in which she called Israel evil, right? And she said, "May Allah awaken the people to the evil doings of Israel." Right? Hashtag Gaza, hashtag Palestine, hashtag Israel.
Can you imagine a white redneck politician said that?
Yeah.
And said, may God awaken to the problems with Israel?
Right. And there's a lot of controversy surrounding Ilhan Omar, of course, because she's a Sharia advocate. She voted against legislation that would have made female genital mutilation a felony. There was also controversy because apparently she didn't want to vote against legislation that would have halted insurance payouts to the family members of terrorists. Right? So she is in favor of the Palestinians, of course, receiving aid. And the whole reason why Trump decided to cut off the aid is because they were using our taxpayer dollars to fund the Pay for Slay program, where they would literally kill innocent Jews, Israelis, and Americans. And then Hamas, which is the government and the Palestinian
Twitter,
Authority.
By the way.
Yeah,
Hamas
of course, Hamas has a Twitter account, but I can't, right? Nosy Jew banned, but Muslim terrorist, A-OK. Yeah, so... you have to ask yourself, one, how do these people get elected, and what is Twitter's terms of service, and are they really, well, we already know they're lying when they say they don't have a bias, because why is a Jewish conservative journalist who is exposing Jew hatred, homophobia, and abuse of women in a tweet being banned, but then, like you said, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, pro-Sharia, pro-Jihad individuals, and people whose kids are literally being arrested for planning terrorist attacks on hospitals in Atlanta, right? Like the father of the New Mexico compound suspect, Siraj Wahaj, right. He's on Twitter. How come I can't have a Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And then you start to look into the breakdown of the financing of Twitter, and there you have your answer, right? You have the Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, who owns more Twitter stock than Jack Dorsey himself. In 2015, he doubled his share. So then when you talk about these things, right, if you look at the government in Saudi Arabia, well, you have a Wahhabist regime, right? They have full-blown Sharia law. It is a place where if you publicly commit blasphemy against Islam, you criticize the Prophet, you're a woman and you're not covered, or, we know what Sharia law is, you could be executed publicly, and they have a public square where they execute people. They take a sword and they chop people's heads off. So why is it that those individuals, people who follow those rules and that political lifestyle, right, that ideology, why are they having so much control over American social media companies, right? Sharia law is totally incompatible with the United States Constitution.
What strange bedfellows these are. We have the radical left, these social justice warriors that want, 72 genders, and they have climbed into bed with Linda Sarsour, running the Women's March, wearing a hijab, telling pro-life women they can't come. You can't have an abortion under Sharia. No,
Muslims are against abortion, and so when you see people like Ilhan Omar and Linda Sarsour, coming out in favor of the Women's March and women's rights, first of all, in these Middle Eastern countries, or where these women are from at least, well, Linda Sarsour, of course, she's an American, but she is Palestinian. Try being gay in the Middle East, right? Try having an abortion in the Middle East. Try saying that you want to have, sexuality, your open sexuality in the Middle East. Try having a slut walk in the Middle East and watch what happens. You're either going to get stoned, you're going to get killed, or honor killed, or, you're going to die one way or another. So it's very problematic. And when you talk about this relationship between the left and the Muslims, well, there's an official term for it. It's called the Red-Green Alliance, right? Or the Marxist Jihadi Alliance. It's mostly called the Red-Green Alliance, and you have this axis with the red, of course. You have these Marxists, these communists, and then the jihadis, which it's the green. And if you look at it, they use each other to get to their common goal of destabilizing the United States and subverting our policies and infiltrating our government. And ultimately, their end goal is the complete overthrow and destruction of the United States Constitution.
Yeah, they kind of want totally different things. They both want to destroy America, like they said at Tucker Carlson's house. No borders, no wall,
Yes.
no USA at all. So let's destroy it. But the Marxists say, I'm going to destroy it, and then I'm going to rebuild this egalitarian utopia that'll be like Mao's Great Leap Forward and probably have similar deaths. But the Islamists don't want that at all.
Well,
they want Sharia. They want to have
exactly.
a Muslim country. There's no such thing as America anymore.
Right, and so
those two are incompatible.
You have the Red-Green Alliance. It's a complete the enemy of my enemy is my friend relationship
yes.
going on here because, make no mistake about it, and people will say this is a conspiracy theory, and I've been branded as an Islamophobe for saying this, but the Muslims have a plan to take over America. And that is not a conspiracy. There are documents that were discovered by the FBI in Virginia, Annandale, Virginia, in a raid, I believe, in 2003. And it's called the Explanatory Memorandum. And the Explanatory Memorandum is a document, a Muslim Brotherhood document that was discovered, of course, like I said, in Virginia in this raid. And it was found in the home of one of the senior Muslim Brotherhood officials who was living here in the United States. And it's a document that outlines the Muslim Brotherhood's plan for taking over the United States, essentially, and instituting an Islamic caliphate here. And they have determined that it's not Europe, which is the ideal location. You may think it's Europe because of all of the chaos happening there and the Islamification and crackdown on, speech about immigration and Islam. But it's actually here in North America and the United States where they have determined is their ideal pick for instituting their caliphate. And you can Google the Explanatory Memorandum. It has the FBI stamps. It's incredible to me that most people are unaware of this, right? Because if you say, oh, Muslims want to take over the country, people look at you and they say, you're crazy, right? You're crazy.
Well, it's a tiny fraction of the population. But when you look at canary in the coal mines like Britain and the rest of Europe, you see this. I just read something recently about an Australian imam, and they said, if you love Islam so much and you hate Australia so much, why don't you go back to the country you come from? And he goes, Australia doesn't belong to Australians. Australia belongs to Allah.
Yeah, and that's what they believe. And so read the Explanatory Memorandum and you'll see that there's about 5 steps or so where they discuss how they're going to infiltrate our education systems, our media institutions, all aspects of society, and they're going to get people in to the institutions through, of course, you have the Muslim Students Association, which is a Muslim Brotherhood organization. Then you have these candidates running for office. You have groups like CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, which is, of course, the main lobby for these people. And they are a designated terrorist organization. The United Arab Emirates classified them as a Islamic terrorist organization. The FBI had to suspend their working relationship with CARE after the Holy Land Foundation terrorism trial, and it wasn't. They were supposed to be prosecuted, and then of course the Obama administration.
I understand. Okay, we're getting off at a tangent here. You've said some problematic things in the past, like with school shootings. You implied that they were fake, or the students were acting.
I didn't imply these shootings were fake. There's a lot of fake news out there about me, and of course it spreads like wildfire when you have these fake news publications just lying. I said I think it's very suspicious how whenever you have a school shooting or one of these mass shootings, there always seems to have been some type of shooting drill in the days prior or the week prior. I find it to be strange.
Doesn't that imply they're fake?
No, I think it's a pattern. I'm not implying that they're fake. And I never said that anybody was a crisis actor. I never said that anybody was acting or that they weren't a real victim. What I said, and this is what I got banned on 30 Days for Facebook, was I found this interview of David Hogg from Parkland, and he had said, oh, my sister lost 2 friends. Oh, she lost 3 friends. Oh, she lost 4 friends. And it just kept changing and changing to just get more sympathy from the viewer. And I said, this kid's a liar. He's obviously lying. And then I obtained undercover video and audio from one of their meetings where they were telling the kids to practice their script lines. And so I said, these kids are getting scripted lines. And then, of course, the media and the Daily Beast, they blew it up and said that I was accusing them of being crisis actors.
So they could both be true. There was a shooting, and these kids are being trained to say things.
Yeah, but they are being trained. I provided the evidence.
But there's just so much information about you. And the thing I always say about Laura, and that's why I love the handcuff thing, is because yes, it can seem messy and erratic, but at least she's out there shaking it up. At least she's promoting free speech. You're the only really radical free speech activist in America right now, especially when we're talking about the right. Yeah. You're the only one out there who has the balls, for lack of a better word, to make people talk. And what I liked about the handcuff thing was, okay, we saw this, it's crazy, oh, the bullhorn, oh, it's a mess, and then people start getting curious. So what is this about? Then we see the 2 tweets that you put up, and then you did that Periscope, where you very soberly explained the entire background of what's going on here and your alleged Islamophobia and why you have a valid voice and you deserve a mouthpiece. And I mean, millions of people heard that. Millions of people found out about it.
Yeah, no, millions of people have seen it. And like you said, it was the #1 trending topic in the United States and #2 worldwide. I mean, it was trending above Putin and Trump at the G20 summit, which is pretty incredible. And I think it was a big F you to Twitter because here they are banning me and all these liberals are laughing. Oh, she's dead. She's deplatformed. Ha, ha, ha. Laura Loomer's gone. But then a week later, I come back stronger than ever and more people than ever know who Laura Loomer is now.
The #1 topic on the platform that you were banned from.
Exactly.
It's funny how they do this too, like big tech. What do you call them? Techno-fascists?
I call them techno-fascists.
These techno-fascists kick all the conservatives off. Moderate conservatives like Owen Benjamin, Milo, Alex Jones, Julian Assange, who's looking at life in prison now. They kick all these people off, and then they can go and lie and say, Laura says that shootings didn't happen, and you can't get on there to go, no, I never said that.
Yeah, but that's their whole goal. And so there's a lot of people who are, even you were under the impression that I have maybe called these people actors or said that they weren't legitimate victims. I mean, I am friends with the Pollock family, who obviously Andrew Pollock lost his daughter Meadow. I would never say something like that. I would never say, oh, there were no real victims in Parkland. I never said that. But of course, the media, they are able to spread this fake news narrative like wildfire. And then instead of actually coming to me and asking me for comment and saying, hey, can I see your video? Which you caught these people on camera telling the kids to practice their scripted fake news lines. Well, they just smear me and they lie about me, and that's what Jack Dorsey did to me too. Last year when he unverified me on Twitter, he put a big picture of my face on Twitter in the Moments section on the news. You know how they have the Moments news section? And it said, Twitter removes verification from prominent white supremacists. And my face was the picture that they used. So now every single time you go online, or every single time you look at my Wikipedia or any article of me, it says, Laura Loomer, far-right, Nazi, white supremacist. I mean, I'm Jewish. My grandfather was arrested by Nazis in Germany, okay? So people have to understand, I have a reason to be pissed off. I have a reason to be doing what I'm doing. How would you feel, if you were getting your career started as a 24-year-old and then your entire reputation was just destroyed by 30 seconds, right? 30 seconds of just one image being out on the internet. And then for the rest of your life, no matter what you did, whether you're sticking up for gay people, for Jews, exposing hatred, uncovering terror plots, whatever you may do and how great it may benefit society and the world, they just call you a Nazi. I mean, for crying out loud, I was wearing a Jewish star on my chest while I was protesting, and every headline was far right. Far right Laura Loomer, far right white supremacist.
Well, they said you were trivializing the Holocaust, but I saw radical leftists wearing the Star of David at the Manhattan Club, using it. Or Billy Joel wore it on stage to imply that
Again,
Trump
there's
is
two
Hitler.
sets of rules here. Why is it acceptable for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, that idiot lady who is now in Congress, to say, oh my God, like Trump using tear gas on migrants crossing the border is just like the Holocaust, How come she's allowed to say something like that? And basically, I mean, I view that as a form of Holocaust denial, essentially, because if you're trying to say that tear gas is the equivalent of Zyklon B, you're essentially saying that the Holocaust didn't happen, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, at the very least, you're trivializing.
You're trivializing it. But then they celebrate her as some champion for women and, some icon. But then if I use a Holocaust reference, I'm a Nazi or I'm a terrible individual, right? There are two sets of rules in this country, whether you are a Republican or you are a Democrat. And that's what Twitter does.
Well, big tech has essentially separated us. When you can't get on and defend yourself, that means that they are drifting off, exactly like a boat, in a different direction, and you've lost touch with them. So I think the only solution is for the right to build an ark for this flood, and we all get together on it and we say, we're over here if you would like to know the truth, but we can't, we've been separated from this other side. They won't let us debate. They say things like genocide doesn't deserve a platform, and you go, no, I don't want to get on and defend genocide. I want to tell you that that's not what I'm about.
But they say genocide doesn't deserve a platform, but then if you look at some of the thousands of tweets which I brought with me to Twitter, a lot of them are calling for genocide, right? If you're a leftist or you're black, you're allowed to call for genocide of white people.
Yeah, anti-Semite,
right?
anti-termite.
You're
you
allowed
want to wipe
call
out
for
termites.
Jews. You're allowed to, I mean, I'll just ask you a question for anybody who, whose head is too thick to understand this. If you have a termite problem, who do you call?
An
Who do you
exterminator.
call? All right, so if you are saying that you're not an anti-Semite, you're anti-termite, like you might as well just say, let's exterminate the Jews.
Yes, that was definitely the implication.
Exactly.
You know, I was going over your past history, and there's one thing, like some things I didn't like the Uma Abedin thing when you were screaming and harassing her. That seemed a little egregious.
I don't know. I think it's fair game, honestly. I don't understand why the left thinks it's okay to send their people to Trump rallies. Hillary Clinton was exposed by Project Veritas while I was working with them. I was part of this investigation. They exposed this concept of bird dogging, where they would literally pay people, right? And they were working with this group called Democracy Partners to incite violence at Trump rallies. People had their heads cracked open. They were assaulted. Old women were attacked, right? And this was all to create the idea that Trump's people were violent. So if they're going to incite violence and physically attack Republicans, why can't I chase Huma Abedin down the street and ask her questions in an aggressive manner, questions that every single American wants to know the answer to, but the media doesn't have the balls to ask?
Great point. Great point.
I don't understand why conservatives are like, oh, this poor little lady, this poor Muslim lady, like, just leave her alone. She's so petite and tiny and cute. I mean, she doesn't deserve the questioning. Well, why not? Why does Tucker Carlson deserve to have, his wife almost ambushed while she's at home while he's on TV and have his house almost robbed by Antifa? Why does he deserve to be doxxed and then conservatives are scared of optics? I'm sick of these, be better conservatives who care more about looking better, because the left doesn't care about morals. They don't care about looking good. They want you dead. They want me dead. They've said it, and no one's doing anything about it. It's time to take the gloves off.
Yeah, well, I often get accused of advocating for violence, and at Deplorable, I punched this anarchist, and people go, "Why'd you do that?"
I was there. I saw it.
Oh yeah.
I was with you.
And I go, the cameras were focused on me. Behind the camera, you had 500 people, a mob right out of a Frankenstein movie, calling for our heads, throwing batteries, throwing feces, and throwing urine.
Exactly.
And we were going to a ball wearing tuxedos.
We weren't even doing anything. I was with you. I was standing next to you when you had that whole thing. I think you licked the guy's face or whatever.
Yes.
But yeah, no, they were crazy. And of course, we were just walking in, and it was incredible to see. Police had to shut down the street, and there was a time when they said, "Oh, it's not safe for you to walk through right now."
Yeah,
we're just going to
in
a
America.
party. And the other part that you're missing out is the fact that Project Veritas, another thing they exposed, was the attempted terrorist attack on the Deplorable. You had these Antifa members that were trying to set off gas bombs inside.
Yep.
So how come
why did Project Veritas have to do that?
Right.
Where was law enforcement? We've got the FBI investigating all these conservatives, going over to someone's house for a tweet, and you go, there's Antifa and Muslim terrorists planning our murders.
Exactly.
Can you maybe focus some more resources
And the
over
media
there?
doesn't talk about it either. They say that we're conspiracy theorists, or that we're white supremacists, or we're Islamophobes for pointing this out, but then they give them a pass. And all the liberal reporters who contacted me about my Twitter protest, right? And they said, oh, well, you've said some really unfounded things about this Muslim lady who's a real hero for the Muslim people, and now she's going to go be in Congress, and that's not nice of you. Well, why are you so focused on my tweet, but you're not talking about Farrakhan? None of these people, they want to answer the question. They don't want to answer why they're giving these people a pass, right?
Well, they also let the far right go. Like David Duke and Richard Spencer are still on Twitter, I believe. And I think the real problem here isn't that they think we're Nazis. They don't care about Nazis. Their problem is that we make Trump supporting seem fun and accessible. And that's a danger to them.
Yeah, but they're also not even smart enough to know that Nazism isn't a right-wing ideology. So they're so stupid, these people. They call us Nazis, right? Nazism, it stands for National Socialists. Nazis are leftists.
Yes.
Okay? So if anything, the people who are behaving like Nazis are people like Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg, these techno-fascists. So I don't understand why we get called Nazis when our ideology is the very thing that opposes. It's a polar opposite, really.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's just
all we
crazy to
want
me.
is for
People
people to
don't
be
get it.
free, and the other side wants to meddle in other people's lives. Surely you want to go with the ones that want to leave everyone alone. Didn't you say recently that you've got big plans for Zuckerberg?
Yeah, I have plans for all of them. They think they're going to silence me, but I'm not going to just sit back and allow them to censor me and all these conservatives. So I do have some plans. I have some Loomer videos in the works, and it's going to be very exciting come January.
Because you've had a hell of a career. That sounds like we're wrapping it up, but there's so much I still want to get to. Like I've had forgotten all this stuff. I've known you for years.
Yeah.
And when I first heard of you, you had arranged for a pro-terrorist ISIS group at your college, when you were still in college. And at the school they said, okay, you can, what was it going to be, fund? Was it Hamas or
Yeah,
ISIS?
so it was ISIS.
ISIS.
Yeah.
You're going to fund ISIS. And they said, just don't include that in the paperwork. And we can do that. Like, can you conceive of a guy with a Confederate flag shirt who wanted to fund some like Nazi white supremacist group in the school going, okay, just don't put that in the paperwork?
Yeah. Yeah, that was when I was working for Project Veritas. I started working for them actually when I was a junior in college. And I decided that I had enough with the political correctness on college campuses, and I thought, isn't it funny how I'm president of College Republicans and I'm constantly being threatened and told that my club is going to be kicked off campus simply because I speak out? I'm not allowed to have my speakers, and if you want to have an Israel club, you're not allowed to have an Israel club. I wonder if they would let me have an ISIS club. So I put on a hidden camera, of course, and that's what I did. I proposed an ISIS club and said I wanted to use school funding to send overseas to fund ISIS, and I wanted to call it Sympathetic Students in Support of the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. So basically, sympathetic students in support of ISIS. And they said, like you just summed up.
Sounds like diversity to me.
Sounds great. We're not here to suppress anybody's ideas. So just change the name so they don't see that you're giving money to ISIS, and we're A-okay.
That's like in DePaul, the biggest Catholic school in America, where a woman, a Palestinian, I think, terrorist, who was responsible for 2 Israeli deaths, had a fundraiser at DePaul. You and I can't talk at DePaul. That would be too violent.
No,
you can do a fundraiser.
We're white supremacists.
For terrorists.
No, exactly, and that's my point, and that's why I get so annoyed with the media as well, because they attack me. Going back to Ilhan Omar, who I was essentially banned for criticizing on Twitter.
Yep.
It
was blasphemy law.
Minnesota, and exposed the fact that she was literally having a fundraiser for Hamas. Yeah, and none of the media showed up, and they called me a crazy conspiracy theorist. She was having a fundraiser for this organization called Dear Gaza, and during the fundraiser, of course, if you look at what is the government in Gaza? Well, it's Hamas, which is a terrorist organization, so any and all aid to Gaza goes through Hamas.
Yeah.
So if you're doing a fundraiser...
There's no moderate Gaza.
There's no moderate... Yeah, exactly. If you're doing a fundraiser for an organization in Gaza, you're essentially raising money for Hamas. And this is a logical, obviously, like, if I'm talking to you, you understand it, and most people would be able to realize, okay, well, if Hamas is the ruling government in Gaza and all aid has to go through Hamas, doing a fundraiser would then be giving money to Hamas.
Right, I understand.
A, B, C, right?
I think
they don't get it.
We're getting to the point now where your canon is so substantial that you can't just dismiss this woman as some crazy lady who screams at Abedin and says that shootings didn't happen. Like, we had that. Getting money, starting an ISIS club was huge. That's a great story to start your career with.
Yeah.
Then you also, you can't literally do this, but you also almost voted in a burqa, a hijab, right?
Right, as Huma Abedin.
As Huma Abedin. Now, you can't actually check the box because that's illegal, but you got right up to the pen where you could do it and then didn't do it. That's massive. Because the left have been denying that voter fraud was a thing, and you said, okay, well then I shouldn't be able to vote as Huma Abedin, and you went in and did exactly that.
Yeah, no, I did, and that was with Veritas again as well. And it was so big that de Blasio actually threatened to fire the election commissioner, who I caught on camera saying, yeah, it's this problem because de Blasio is busing people in to vote, and we have all these people in these minority communities, and they're coming in, and then don't even get me started on the Muslims because they come in their burqa, and they don't ask for ID, so there's no way to tell if these people are really who they are, and then it's a security risk, and you could have a bomb under there. And it was kind of like this bombshell expose, and this guy was just going on and on and on. And it caused a lot of waves. It was all over Fox News. And of course, nobody knew that it was Laura Loomer because I was undercover, right? I was like a no-name undercover operative working for Project Veritas. But I have done a lot of impactful investigative work, and so when a lot of people say, oh, Laura's just this attention whore who just does stunts and she's never done anything substantial for the movement, really, from the time I was 20, I'm 25 now, for 3 years of my life, I was doing a lot of the undercover exposés for Project Veritas.
Yeah, it's a hell of a resume. It's a hell of a list. One thing you got criticized a lot for was saying that you don't want to ride in cabs with Muslim drivers.
Right, yeah, and I totally stand by that.
Well, I just saw a case recently in New York where there was a Muslim Uber driver who dragged a gay man out of his cab and beat him mercilessly.
Yeah.
And then the story the media said was that the cops were not sympathetic.
Yeah.
So the cops are homophobic. That's the takeaway from the media. And I've been kicked out of a cab for making out with my wife. She was my girlfriend at the time. We hear about cab drivers at LaGuardia refusing to take dogs or alcohol. I don't know. it should be up to you.
Right, but
shouldn't it?
if you need the backstory for why I said that, right, and the media doesn't want to talk about that.
What's the backstory?
I said that I was 30 minutes late to the New York City press conference for de Blasio regarding the ISIS terrorist attack in which 8 people were killed on Halloween last year by a Muslim Uber driver who didn't have a valid driver's license, and of course he was working for Uber. He pledged allegiance to ISIS, okay? Killed 8 people.
No one talks about that, by
no
the
one
way.
wants to talk about that
No
part.
one wants to talk about
No one wants to talk
Charlottesville.
about that.
I have seen barely anyone talk about 8 people murdered.
8 people murdered. No one wants to talk about that. But then I say, well, I'm 30 minutes late, and it was supposed to be like this cheeky, sarcastic thing, but I was also kind of serious to raise awareness about this because I knew people would go crazy when I tweeted this. And I said, well, I couldn't find a non-Muslim Uber, Lyft, or cab driver in New York City. Someone needs to create a non-Muslim form of Uber or Lyft. I mean, for crying out loud. And then every celebrity went psycho on me. Every publication it was on, Entertainment Tonight, it was People Magazine, everybody lit me up, right? Because I posted this. But then no one wants to actually look at the statistics, right? Nobody wants to talk about this woman named Rebecca Dykes who was wearing a skirt that was too short, so her Muslim Uber driver murdered her. Nobody wants to talk about the fact that an ISIS Uber driver killed 8 people. No one wants to talk about the fact that a pregnant lady was kicked out of an Uber by a Muslim because she had a dog, and then the guy proceeded to attack the dog and kick it. No one wants to talk about this gay man who was kicked out and beaten by a Muslim Uber driver. But then I'm the villain because I actually talk about facts.
But my side too is, say you think what Laura says is abhorrent. Say you're a Muslim and you don't think there's a problem with radical Islam. This is free speech, a free speech country, and she should be able to opt out of a certain type of cab. You should be able to, you're not infecting anyone's lives when you come up with these personal dictums where you say, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I want to expose this, I want to expose that. It's all free speech. And to see so many people on the right attack you, I just see people on the right attacking the First Amendment.
Well, they are. And then, like I said, it all goes back to this double standard and bias. Twitter allowed, I believe it was a month or 2 ago, for this woman's tweet to trend in which she said, I don't want to have white male drivers in Uber because I'm afraid they're going to rape me. So then there was like this whole campaign to boycott your white male Uber driver. How is that any different from me saying, I don't want to get in an Uber with a Muslim because I'm a Jewish American woman and they want to kill me for who I am?
Islam is a religion. White male, that's you're judging someone by something they can't change.
It's not even a religion, it's a political ideology. It's a complete political way of life, and it has its own legal structure, which completely disregards our laws and our Constitution. So it doesn't matter whether you're living here in America, like you're going to abide by Sharia. So if my skirt is too short, rape her, right? If I'm a Jew, kill her. Right? And I have a right to be able to take my safety into my own hands, especially when I'm not allowed to own a gun in New York City.
Slow down here. I don't want to make this into a pulpit to complain about Islam. You don't think that Muslims want to kill you. I mean, there may be some who advocate that, but your average Muslim walking down the street doesn't wish harm on Laura Loomer.
No, I really do believe that they do, and whether they say it or not.
All of them? What percentage?
If you are, this is what people don't understand because they're not learned in Islam. They've never even picked up a Quran. If you truly are a Muslim, right, you are basically committing to upholding the way and life of the Prophet Muhammad completely, right? There's no picking and choosing. Right? Reforming Islam and denouncing or condemning the Prophet Muhammad is a punishable offense by death. It makes you an apostate in Islam. So when the Prophet Muhammad says, you know, when they say in the Quran in chapter 5, verse 51, to not take Jews and Christians as your friend, or when the Quran, tells Muslims to kill Jews, they mean it. And if you don't believe that, you are not a real Muslim. So yes, I do believe that all Muslims want to kill me. Yes, I do.
Oh, come on.
And I'm not afraid of saying that.
That's a bit rich. Maybe most Muslims are not following the Quran word for word, because I don't.
Well, then they're not a real Muslim. So that's
okay.
The thing. I'm talking about what it means to be a Muslim, and people want to conflate it, and they want to say that there's such thing as moderate Islam. They want to say that there's such thing as extreme Islam. There is only one form of Islam. You cannot say that there's different classifications. Muslims don't even believe that themselves. You would be an apostate.
There's different classifications with Christians. I mean, I'm not the best Christian in the world.
If you go to the Middle East and you say, I don't really think that Muhammad was right when he said that, that's a punishable offense. You would be killed in places like Indonesia or Saudi Arabia. You would, or these Muslim majority countries, they're not even in the Middle East, right? Like some of them, there's Muslim majority countries all over the place. You would be killed for saying something like that. So people need to educate themselves about Islam. Go take a
Sure.
counterterrorism class.
I don't
Go read the
want this
Quran.
interview to be all about Islam. I
Right,
want this
but I
interview
just-
to be about free speech.
I understand.
And what frustrates me about the right's reaction to you is a total lack of support. And this frustrates me about Trump too. Like they go, oh, I hate his tweets, he's arrogant. I go, Trump is a stick of dynamite that we threw into the White House. Boom. We are taking down the government, draining the swamp with Trump. Yes, he's boorish at times. Yes, he's a cad. Yes, he has typos in his tweets. I don't care about that. I want a complete reboot of the government. And I find that your political actions, though sometimes they seem a little erratic, at least they're stirring it up. At least we're having free speech. At least we're finding out that you can vote as Uma Abedin.
Yeah.
That's a really important role in society. How do you feel when you see this backlash from conservatives, your own people, saying she's a mess, we disavow?
Well, it's disheartening, right? But I used to let it bother me, right? And I used to say, well, it's sad. Like these people who I used to idolize, they don't like me or they're talking about me, right? I mean, when you grow up as a kid and you watch Fox News every night and you aspire to be, some Fox News talking head or, to be on Fox News and you see people trashing you, people who you watched every night with your family. I mean, it kind of hurts you a little. But then you start to realize, well, wait a second, obviously these people don't really have a backbone and they're not really true to the conservative cause because they're trying to, like I said, be better conservative. And if people can't see that we are in a full-blown war right now, the left does not care about rules. They don't care about destroying people's lives. They don't care about the consequences of their actions. Well, why are we being held to this higher expectation? Yeah. And so I just think to myself, well, if they don't like me, they don't like me. Right? That's fine. I'm not here to get approval, right? I'm not here for people to invite me to the holiday parties or to, have me appear as their guest. I don't really care if people don't like me. I'm just trying to raise awareness about the issues. I'm trying to be a voice for the silent majority, and I'm trying to affect change. And I am. And I'm at this point now where it doesn't matter if people hate me, they are still forced to talk about me because my investigations and my videos are so impactful. And no one else is doing it.
I mean, at the end of the day, the number one topic on Twitter means that everyone sees that Ilhan Omar tweet next to the Farrakhan tweet. I mean, no matter how you slice it, that message got out.
Exactly.
And everyone realized that we have a double standard here.
Well, and I want to ask you, too, why is it that these conservatives, these cookie-cutter conservatives, why do they think they're more effective sitting on their talk shows each night saying things like, oh my God, Hillary Clinton went on this book tour. Can you believe the book is called What Happened? We know what happened. And obsessing about it for 2 weeks, right? And then I show up to her book signing and actually ask her on the first day she releases the book, so what happened? What happened in Benghazi? What happened in Haiti? What happened here? What happened there?
That was beautiful. I love that.
Why do they think that them talking about it obsessively for 2 weeks is more impactful than me actually putting my cell phone in her face and asking her?
Yeah, that's a great point.
And then they trash
You see that with the right and the left.
Right.
There's these armchair warriors, these armchair critics who just sit on their ass and say, like, friends of mine went down to help with the Hurricane Harvey in Texas, and they had guns because it's a very dangerous scene down there. There's looters, and they brought water to people and brought people to safety. And the takeaway was that these conservatives went down there and they were hunting looters. That's why they went down.
Yeah.
And you think, these guys, they've got their hip waders on and they're bringing water bottles to people of all races. And the dude sitting on the couch, who's never been to any sort of hurricane relief effort, is just sitting there calling them racist, calling them looter hunters.
Yeah.
And we see that with Twitter, we see that with the news.
Right.
No one's actually out there. You got to get out there. That used to be, remember the journalism with, hey, can you answer you had an affair with a 15-year-old girl?
And that's what I do.
Them? And that seems to have died. It's just pontification now. But the way things get done is you get out there, you get into people's faces.
Yeah, that's what I do. And then people say that I'm crazy. But reporters actually used to doorstop people. Reporters used to show up to your house and ask you questions, right? Like, hey, can you tell me about that affair? Can you tell me what this is about? They used to ambush people like I do, this guerrilla form of journalism that people now think is extreme. So we've gone from having my tactics be the norm of journalism and having them be what makes a good aggressive journalist to now being some extreme conspiracy theorist, and I have been called, a stalker, I've been called a conspiracy theorist, a racist, whatever. Right? Nazi. But a Nazi. But my point is that what I'm doing is actually effective, right? I show up to Hillary's book signing. I show up to Bill Clinton's book signing, James Comey's book signing. I confront Huma Abedin. I ask her about the emails. I ask her about the pedophilia.
Well, in
no one else
Mandalay
is doing
Bay,
it.
they said, no, people can't take the freight elevator without an escort. It never happens. And then you did it 4 times.
Yeah.
And then everyone went, wait a minute. And that's huge because now people go, what else are they lying about?
Well, and then I was the person who confronted Sheriff Lombardo, of course, during the Vegas presser and said, why are you lying and saying that this guy checked in on the 28th when I have his room receipt right here and it shows he checked in on the 25th?
Oh, right.
And then everyone freaked
There's
out.
so many of these.
And then I was
like
labeled
15
a conspiracy theorist and banned from the press conference. And all the other reporters stole my content and then wrote it off as their own story while they ostracized me. So the thing is I think that a lot of the people who don't like me or a lot of the people who think that I'm crazy or have negative viewpoints, it's just off of what they've seen online, complete smears. Because I guarantee you if any of these people came up to me and they actually had a conversation with me and they asked me, they would realize that it's all lies. Most of the stuff, 90% of the stuff online about me, the negative stuff, is all fake news.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat.
I mean, even you thought that I said that the shooting didn't happen, and I explained to you, and now you're like, oh, okay, well, that seems reasonable.
Right. Well, if I was ever to take it seriously to heart, I would call you. Like I just read about that theory a few hours ago. But we're living in a very incurious time. So we've got 2 things going on at once. On the one hand, we have people at their laziest, at their most armchair critic, at their least curious. And then, simultaneously, we have the laziest journalists, the laziest reporting ever. Like, they'll just take one rumor, and then you read it, and it even has the same verbiage. Like when they call someone an alt-right hate group, you'll see that exact same verbiage in every single article. It's just this regurgitation of one story that was based on a rumor. So that's a pretty deadly combination. Lazy journalists and lazy readers.
And also, too, twisting of a narrative, like trying to present something like it's not the case, right? So if we go back to why I was banned from Twitter, I was pointing out that it's rather ironic for Ilhan Omar to be the representative for minorities. Well, there's 2 billion Muslims in the world and there's 15 million Jews worldwide. There's probably more Muslims living in America than there are Jews living in the entire world, right? And so I'm pointing out facts and then I get labeled as an Islamophobe for pointing this out. And so when you have the laziness and then combined with the bias and then also this like malicious intent to completely construe something into something it's not, it's very dangerous. And someday people are going to get killed
for
over
your
it.
life.
Yeah.
I mean, you've had to move to protect yourself.
I had to move because I was getting crazy messages, and I was getting text messages from unknown numbers of like severed heads, and it was in Arabic, and it said "You're next." I was getting crazy messages from members of Antifa. You know, I had to actually talk to John Guandolo about it. And you know John Guandolo, he's a former FBI counterterrorism expert, of course, and does a lot of briefing on terrorism here. And he was telling me, like, this is a very serious situation. You know, I receive very serious threats for the work that I do. And of course, the media doesn't report on that. They just fuel the flames and they add to. The same thing has happened to you.
Oh, yeah. Well, half the time I'm talking to the FBI because I have a very believable death threat. The other time I'm talking to the FBI because they're investigating me. Like, when you're done investigating me, can we look at these people who are trying to kill me, please?
Yeah.
Don't leave. Stay here. We'll do both meetings at once.
Right, exactly. And then we all know, you know, the FBI, of course. I kind of laugh when people say, oh, go to the FBI. It's like, oh, you mean the same FBI that failed to tell us that Omar Mateen's father was an FBI informant? Oh, you mean the same FBI that lied to us about this jihadi over here? Yeah, I've just lost total faith in the FBI as well. But it's a scary situation.
Didn't they have a lead on those 2 guys that went to kill Pamela Geller in Texas? Weren't they with them?
They were with them.
Yeah,
yes.
they were with them that
day. And it kind of makes you wonder. It makes you wonder what the FBI had in mind for that event, right?
Now we're getting spooky.
Because people got shot. But look, I mean, I ask these questions, and these are things that the mainstream media would never dare touch.
That's what I want to get across in this interview. Forget what she says. It's about her right to say it. You should be able to say something offensive. You should be offended. You can't persecute someone for asking questions. Your tweet was literally interrogative. It said, "Isn't it ironic?" You're allowed to wonder.
Well, and it was also 100% factual.
Right.
So it was a question. That contained facts. Everything I said is completely true. I don't understand why the ADL is able to tweet 2 weeks prior to my tweet, Ilhan Omar is an anti-Semite. The ADL is taking the same position I am. but then I get banned and they don't. So it just seems like obviously there's this clear-cut political motivation, and I know that they were targeting me because, to mention Project Veritas again, when they did their Twitter expose, one of the senior engineers was joking about taking away my verification over dinner because of my views on Islam. So I know that I'm targeted for my beliefs, and it's not even just my beliefs; it's factual information. I am targeted for being a journalist, a Jewish conservative journalist in America, reporting facts about Islam and jihadi candidates. And other topics as well, but mostly that.
Other topics, yeah. I think the subtext here, the eventual goal is pretty sinister, and it's let's dehumanize these people. Like one thing they do, you see Chris Hayes and leftists, not Rachel Maddow, but you see these leftists and these celebrity activists, they're always with their kids.
Yeah.
Conservatives can't pose with their kids. Their kids can't be in social media. So you don't see the person as a family man or a family mom. You see him as just this lone figure. So then they take away your background, your context. Then they take away your voice, and then they call you a Nazi and you're evil. And now to kill that person, it's not so bad. You're not killing a human. You're killing Hitler in his crib. You're killing someone who was going to start genocide. Yeah. And it justifies a murder. And these negligent reporters playing this silly game don't realize that they're putting people's lives in danger. And the right is putting you in danger when they don't support you, when they don't advocate for you having a voice.
Well, they're putting themselves in danger too, right?
Yeah,
because you brought up Jesse Kelly, for example, right? And it was kind of crazy how all these conservative bros who were attacking me and not really standing by me when I was banned from Twitter. They were like, oh well, it's a private company, right? But then Jesse Kelly gets banned, and it's like, oh my God, why are they banning him? They must reinstate him immediately, right? Conservatives also, they decide to pick and choose what they want to stand by according to who they like.
They don't like controversy.
And they don't like it. And they don't
weak.
realize that there are people fighting. Like, I don't want to, degrade anybody and say that they're not important because of the work that they do, but I really do believe that my work is more impactful on the ground, confronting people, than it is sitting at a desk, talking every single night, being a conservative pundit. I really don't believe that you are accomplishing anything by getting dressed up and going on TV and simply just talking.
I
right?
think you're,
and they try to minimize me, and they call me crazy.
I think that you have accomplished a lot more than I have in a third of the time. I pontificate for a living and make jokes about the news. You actually change things.
Right. And so then it's interesting that you said that, because I'll use another example. I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast the other day, and he was actually talking about me with Anthony Cumia. Anthony Cumia knows who I am. I've met him, of course, when I was on the Compound Media set one time. And it's interesting because you just said, I think that you have accomplished more than I have. But then Joe Rogan praises you and says, oh my God, Gavin McInnes is such a funny, amazing dude. I love him so much. Oh, Laura Loomer, did you see she handcuffed herself? What a nutcase. Doesn't that seem, that creates a lot of cognitive dissonance? Here you are telling me I have accomplished more than you in the sense of affecting this type of on-the-ground change, but I'm the nutcase and you're the hilarious dude that deserves to be praised.
Well,
kind of makes you wonder what's going on.
I got praised once. I got a lot of criticism.
But do you know what I'm saying? Like, why?
I think a lot of it is sexism. And I think another...
Well, I wasn't going to say it, but yeah, that's the thing. Is it sexism? What is at the root of conservatives also? And I notice it's a lot of the men. And look, I'm not a victim. I'm not saying feel bad for me because I'm a woman. I don't care. My balls are bigger than most of the men on the right anyway.
If you were a 6-foot-tall black guy who was also Jewish, you were like a Kenyan Jewish guy, and you were tough, and you were doing the same thing, it would be completely different reporting, especially from the left.
Exactly.
It would be a different universe. But you know what's funny about you? You're one of the few who can take it, and I've known you for a long time, and you were out of the house at a boarding school when you were like 12 years old.
Yeah.
So your Saturdays when you were a kid were doing your laundry, running errands, buying coat hangers, getting more dish soap, like being a woman. So in a way, your adulthood started before your adolescence, and now you're like an old lady.
Yeah, I know, which is funny.
You're my age, basically.
Yeah, and people can never believe I'm 25, and they're like, she's 25? I thought she was, in her 30s or 40s.
Not experience-wise. You're 35 experience-wise.
Yeah, well, I did. I went to boarding school when I was 12 years old, and
Not as a rich kid. It was a state thing.
Yeah, no, it wasn't, rich parents send you off to boarding school. No, it was because of, family situations, of course, and I had to go to boarding school because of, things that occurred during my childhood, of course, and It built me into the person I am today. I definitely matured faster. And then from the time I was 12 till 18, I was in boarding school, and then I went off to college. And I worked. I took 21 credits in college, and I worked full time, right? So I didn't really go out and party. I didn't really do a lot of the stuff that most college kids do, but I didn't want to. And so I've always just been very goal-oriented and focused on, affecting change and doing what I want to do. And that's
you're resilient.
why I'm so focused on this.
And I think you'll win via attrition, just hammering and hammering. Was it Gandhi who said first they laugh at you, then they ignore you, then they fight you, then you've won?
Then you win, yeah.
And the beauty of the Twitter thing it carried all of those. Mm-hmm. They ridiculed you when you came in with the bullhorn. No, she's a nut job. And then they ignored you. She's irrelevant. And then they fought you and said, she's bad for the conservative movement. She's evil. She's a danger to us all. And then you won because at the end you did that Periscope. Everyone saw those two tweets. Everyone who's remotely curious saw you explain it in a very somber, reasonable way, and you got your message to the world. And I think a lot of people, I saw posters up in San Francisco that said, wanted, thought crime, and it had your face on it.
Yeah.
So people are going, wait a minute, what does she have to say? And they're finally listening.
Yeah, and it's effective. And regardless of what people think about it, millions of people online are now more aware of this double standard that exists and the censorship of conservatives than they were the day before I handcuffed myself.
I think it's pretty brave of you to sacrifice yourself. You're almost like a martyr in a sense. You go, all right, fine, call me a nut job, persecute me, mock me, ridicule me. At least I'll get my message out.
Yeah, and that's how I feel. I think that a lot of people need to make more sacrifices for their movement. We need to fight for this country. And I love my country, and I don't want to see it be taken over by this, Marxist Islamic alliance, this red-green alliance that's taking place and really trying to undermine everything that makes us great. And I'm willing to fight. And it doesn't matter if, the conservatives at Fox, they laugh at me and they call me a protester when they celebrate me, months prior for confronting Maxine Waters, right? People pick and choose when they want to love and hate Laura Loomer, right? And so that's fine, right? I'm not, like I said, I'm not in this movement. I'm not in this career path to make friends and to be invited to the parties and to be liked. I'm here to create change and help fight for what I believe in.
Disagree with her all you want, but she should have the right to speak her mind.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming on the show, Laura.
Of course, anytime.